morning and welcome once again to Daybreak Africa from our studio in Ondo State, which happens to be the sunshine state of the nation. It's a beautiful morning. My name is Ikhonede Joshua Deji.
And my name is Odunayo. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak Africa.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. And this morning, the way they do it, I was yesterday, immediately after the Daybreak Africa, I went to my daughter's school. So, it's resumption actually. So, we're watching the assembly programs and all that. And like, this is good. Now I was enjoying the old vibes and all that until I've just said, hey, we have to pay this. Okay, pay. We have to pay this. Pay. We have to. You see, it got to a point I had to just tell them, wait, please, what does a 2-year-old do with 20 books? Let's be sincere, like 20 books. Why? Why? They just want to watch TV and I don't know. I don't know. Like, you're saying it's for one thing, hundreds of thousands are dropping. And one of the things I observed yesterday or two was that a lot of mothers were smiling, a lot of fathers were not smiling.
What are you trying to say?
We were looking at each other.
What are you trying to say?
There's a particular guy we were just looking at each other like, doesn't.
Like brotherly.
I understand the brother. I know what you're feeling like. I'm like, it's well. It's well, but then it's a lot. It's a whole lot. Okay. But then the good part of it is that when it came, the capacity to actually fund those things is actually there in the actual sense. And this is just a shout out to fathers, to mothers too as well out there, because I know single parents especially, or even wives that are with husbands that maybe for now, maybe due to one thing or the other, are incapacitated to attend to responsibilities at the same time, or maybe, let's just say, some that are to the extremely responsible and all that. So the mother seems to be taking. Imagine if a woman is now taking the responsibility of both funding and still feeding, and the stress of still taking children to school, because women will have to wake up as early as 5:30 a.m. in the morning, wake the children up, begin to do one or two, especially if the child is still a toddler, or maybe they are just around just at that kid level, before they get to the point of where maybe they are already getting to the age of accountability, where they can do some things themselves. And cool, so you have to be up and do this, cook, that, still also to pay their fees. Shout out to you guys. You guys are actually doing fine. You're trying, and I don't envy anybody actually, because the truth is these are hot times, really hot times. A lot of things have been happening around the country. I've been seeing them. I've been seeing that the emergency rule in Rivers State is now about to be cancelled. The season has elapsed, so Fubara will be reinstated soon back as the governor of the state, and a whole lot of things have been going on the side level. We saw Natasha, we saw Dangote versus Nupeng, a whole lot of things have been happening, but we'll be looking at them holistically, at least on Daybreak Africa. So you just need to keep watching and watching and watching. And this week, aside, we will be doing some health discourse too as well. I think there is one I'm bringing for health discourse too as well. So let's see how it goes. Let's see how this week goes. But first, let's take a short break. After the short break, we'll come back on Daybreak Africa, and we will definitely be moving on to our discussion segment. So please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the show. And this morning we are going to be having a very crucial discussion. Today we turn our spotlight to Africa's booming startup ecosystem. We see that in just 8 months of 2025, Africa's startups have already raised over $2 billion, surpassing the total amount raised in the entire of 2024. We see that it is also discovered that 90% was from the male-led venture, while the 10% was for the female-led venture. Not just that, we are talking about this milestone, not only a sign of renewed investor confidence, but also an indication that African innovation, our resilience, and also our entrepreneurial spirit are beginning to attract global attention. But beyond the impressive number, what does this mean for our job? What does this mean to our technology and our sustainable growth across the continent? That's what we're going to be talking about this morning. And we have our guest with us who is going to be joining us online. He is an economist in person of Sam Olubunmi. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Sam.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for also being part of us today actually on Daybreak Africa. And thankfully, we are looking at the topic as sensitive as this when it comes to startups in Africa in the actual sense. But let's go straight to the point. You've seen the reports that in the last 8 months, startups in Africa has gathered over $2 billion. We know what being a startup owner actually is. Now, looking at the fact that they are able to gather over 2 billion in the last 8 months, how do you feel about such kind of a report at this particular time?
Yeah, if you don't mind, can you repeat the question again? I think I lost you for a second.
Okay, I'm talking about the startups in Africa and the fact that in the last 8 months they have been able to gather $2 billion, even though it's an increase, but people believe that it should be a bit more than that. What's your take on this whole new milestone by the startups in Africa at this particular time, gathering over $2 billion in the space of 8 months, knowing how difficult it is to actually have a startup in the way the continent's economic ecosystem looks like as we speak?
Yes, we can see like on the overall level, there's a growth in the startup ecosystem as pertaining raisings of funds across board, except for few regions who have actually dominated this startup fundraising. That we see that their share of this has actually dwindling. But apart from that, I believe it's a good thing for Africa at large because we are being recognized for our efforts. We are being recognized by investors, by VC fund as a viable economy as Africa as a large. But for West Africa and Nigeria, the story is not quite palatable.
Why do you think the story is not quite palatable for West Africa and Nigeria especially? Because we know fintech companies actually came to Nigeria. Because I discovered that in the actual sense, North Africa happens to be the biggest of destination, but the West Africa seems to be extremely a bit not the way it used to be. What's your take? What do you think really went wrong with West Africa, particularly Nigeria, who happens to be the hub of fintechs in this particular ecosystem?
We can see some couples of years back with Paystack and Flutterwave, how they went trying to raise huge amount of money, and their current valuation is also in billions, right? They're already what we call they've reached that $1 billion mark, right? So
yeah.
For now, when we look at the fundraising sector within the startup ecosystem, we see this is area that Nigeria, West Africa actually dominates before. We dominate this sector, we dominate fundraising, and our fintech take the largest share out of this before. We even innovate across board. When we talk about innovation as pertaining fintech, maybe there's something called virtual wallet address and some key and core innovations that actually drive the whole fintech sector across Africa countries. Some of these and majority of these are pioneers in Nigeria. Now imagine that a sector we used to dominate, like across board we dominate, we take the lion's shares out of whatsoever being raised across Africa, but now like it has dwindling over time. And I think this is not a good news because investors are shifting away their focus from Nigeria, right, from West Africa, because they love a bit of stability, and we can see the inflow currently into East Africa. Out of the 2 billion, East Africa take over $1 billion. Was raised from East Africa, and this is a good thing for them. And I just also think it's the time West Africa and Nigeria also, we need to sit up and begin to ask ourselves, are we actually providing the right enabling environment for people to do businesses? Thank you.
But away from that, a bit away from that, what do you think is actually the drive, or let me say the motive behind this kind of funding? We see that in the space of 8 months, we've actually had this kind of fund, even more than the total of 2024. What do you think is the drive behind this?
Everybody's looking to make money in a way, right? And sure. I believe Africa is already becoming, as at now, globally, Africa is still the most viable continent that you can invest and see huge number of growth, right, as a continent. And this global world, this world power, they are seeing that majority of the people in Africa are still on the bank, right? Majority of us, we've not reached the climax of innovation and civilization that other countries are actually seeing, right? So the drive is the startup are beginning to build engage and build sustainable products, and which is viable, which people know that, this investor know that, okay, these are viable, feasible product that in the matter of time is going to just do well and perform well. Majority of VC fund, they are going all in into your product, and I think it's a good thing for Nigeria and for Africa rather. And you should look at it from this perspective. If you should just Google a state in the United States of America, you will see that what they've been able to raise in terms of VC fund just in a month, a state out of the 52 states is bigger than what Africa as a continent has been able to raise. Though we've achieved a huge milestone, but we are still very, very, very underserved as pertain to fundraising.
But why do you think we've been on the south and in the place of fundraising is taking longer than expected? Because if we know from the last few years, if we discover, even if we check most of the social media space, the tech space, and many of those space, it seems Africans are doing very well in that aspect, even though many are not doing it within Africa. Many of them are out of Africa doing their businesses and all that in tech and all that. But why do you think it's taking longer than expected for us to get to that peak of investments and all that, especially for startups, especially in the tech area particularly?
Yeah, I think a number of factors actually contribute to this, right? So first and foremost is the issue of enabling environment, the issue of instability, economy instability, insecurity. I mean, a whole number of factors. Then the right educations and all of that. We can see a conscious effort from both some governments and from individual actually going extra mile to learn how to do business the right way, go out of the way to learn what it means to even do business on a large scale. And I think a quote from Elon Musk was that it's very hard, it's 100 times harder for you to build something on a large scale than when you are just building for a few number of people to use, like maybe you are just doing prototyping. And I think, just like we know that African continent, it takes some time for us to catch up with innovations, with civilization and all of that, and some own to culture, right? But I believe we are still doing well. We are still moving in the right direction. As government begin to bring the investor, as government begin to actually let the investor series into invest in their country, provide right infrastructure, right environment, and environment to do businesses and all of that. I think it's a good thing. Once we have all of this in places and there's a whole new level of education, the right education, we are going to mature up, because it takes time also for you to catch up. Well, it has been projected that the African continent will still one day, in the next 1 to 2 decades, become the largest economy in the world, which is actually correct, with all the statistics that is out there currently.
All right. So do you feel like this kind of funding, do you think that we can actually even go beyond, even more than 2025? We can still experience this kind of funding
on a higher scale?
Yes.
Sorry?
Do you feel like, even aside from 2025, beyond 2025, do you feel like on a higher scale we can experience this kind of funding even more?
Generally across Africa country, I think yes, but for West Africa and Nigeria, we just need to sit up properly, right? Because the signal we are sending to investors are quite different, right, from what our other partners in East Africa and South Africa actually said into their investor. And investor knows to be just like this. Also, is a game of profit. It's a game of number, right? So if Africa maintain the whole momentum across board, we are going to actually see an increase in financing and all of that. But for Nigeria and for West Africa to actually perform better, we need to put a whole lot into places, which majority are just government responsibility, just to simply put it.
So you feel the government of the West African countries are not doing as much as the East African countries and the South African countries and the North African countries at this particular time in Africa? That is why we are not meeting up with such forms of investment, from your own perspective?
Definitely, I would say yes, because if you just look at it this way, few years back, Lagos is the hub of startup, is the hub of any technology-driven company in the whole of Africa. But currently, it is not Lagos. It has moved to East Africa, Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda, to be precise. So it means that if you have seen also the turmoils we have actually passed through as a country for the past this almost like 10, 11 years, it begin to change the narrative, it begin to change even the face of our economy, that our economy drops significantly. By 2030, by 2025, 2030, it was projected that the Nigeria economy should have touched $1.1 trillion, right? Economy. But currently, we even we stand deep than even what it were a few years back. So I believe a whole lot that is going on the continent of Africa, of West Africa in particular, and Nigeria to be precise, has to do with what investors are willing to do. Before Nigeria take the lion's share, but now it is not only to insecurity, only to not having an enabling environment. Just imagine, between 2023 to 2025, a lot of companies, even foreign companies, they actually close up. A lot of startups close up whatsoever they are doing due to even real estate developer, that real estate is meant to be a safe haven. They close down because majority of these people, they are maybe paying for infrastructure or using dollar and all of that. And imagine the instability with the currency. Look at the inflations and all of that. As at 2023, by May 1st, 2023, Naira was around 650, 700.
Yeah.
But currently, even this year, it peaked to as high as 1718, and currently at 15. And despite the rise and all of that, you can see that majority of the increase of goods and services do not even decrease with the dollar deflation, right? So we just need to make a conscious effort as a people, then much more as the leaders of Africa, as the government of Africa, to begin to of West Africa, to begin to actually create the right environment for people to actually do business, the right environment for investors to actually invest in, and look at the instability across some few other West Africa countries as regards to coup and all of that, the changing of government and all of that. So I think this actually contributed to the decline
in West Africa
country.
Being the most embattled of them all at this particular time. I think I like that you brought up the Lagos issue, because I know Lagos used to be the best economy when it comes to states in Africa, in West Africa, even in Africa generally. But now there's been a bit of shift and other. So you don't believe the narrative of the president? That is the president of Nigeria saying that the economy is actually recovering. Or what do you say about that?
I believe why it is true that good things take time, but we can see that something that actually needs improvement can be instantaneous. For example, if you look at a country like Argentina, right, you can see the effort of the government since month one of them being in office. You can even see the increase. You can see they don't need propaganda. They don't need a lot of things to be able to let you know what they are doing. You can actually see, it's funny that a government that is trying to do a whole lot of propaganda to be able to present themselves in the right way, that actually is saying something. If I don't have anything to cover, I don't need to spend so much more on pushing what I'm doing, because people can see it. I believe there might be improvement, but I'm just saying there's whatsoever we have now as improvement, we need to do like S10 of that, much more, before we can see a genuine growth in this sector and the Nigerian economy at large.
Okay, you own a business, you are a startup. Why do you think it's always very difficult for a startup to actually raise funds or get particular amounts? Because I've been curious about this for some time, because I know how startups are. Even if you want to go and look for jobs, sometimes they will tell us you need 5 years experience, you need 3 years experience, not to talk of you starting a business that I'm going to put my money in. Now the job part is just you want to pay me salary. The startup is I want to invest in your business, and I'm coming to you, or you're coming to me and you're telling me invest in this business. I know that the projection is going to be this. What do you think is, why do you think it's always very difficult for startups to get fundings at this particular time?
Yes, I believe part of the reason is that some startup are not built to succeed. They are not even built to be profitable. And that is the larger education that majority of African people has. There's a way to do business at scale. There's a way to do startup that is viable and at scale. And there's a way not to do it, which at the general way everybody is going about it. But another comment is that to run or to do startup in Nigeria or Africa at large is quite hard than our counterpart continents. Like if you're in the United States of America or America generally, the whole North America, South America, or Europe inclusive, and some part of Asia, right? Middle East to Eastern Asia, you will see that it's quite easier for you to raise funds as a startup, even if what you are even providing as a solution is something that is so ridiculously useless to, from the perspective of an African. You can easily still raise mega fund, but even if you are giving people long life and prosperity in Nigeria, it's quite hard to get funding generally, because of, number one, we have different culture, different education, different environment, and all of that. So it's quite hard for people to actually do startup in Africa and in Nigeria, actually. Then the second one, which I've said, is many people are building to fail. Let me cite an example. There's a friend of mine that got funded like 50K grant to actually start a startup then and then tech, but the whole thing failed, right? But he has learned his lesson that he was on his second startup, now a fintech, which is actually doing well. Like majority of us do not have the right education, do not have the right information to build a startup. We just believe it's all about the code. It's not about the code, right? So we need much more in the area of education, in the area of awareness, and how to even structure a business. He got funded 50K. He began to pay his staff salary in $1. Secondly, he hired more than needed. He later has a staff of around 30 staff. Even like over 60% of them are not performant. They are not efficient. But everybody just believe, right, there's money, we can take salary indefinitely and all of that. No. But once we know that this thing, either a grant, either investment, is meant for a purpose, it's not just meant to siphon. And also, majority of African and startup generally, they have bad habits when it comes to money. They have a lot of inconsistency. I mean, even to some company that raise, we can see that there's a startup in Ghana that closed down. They worth a lot of money, and the whole startup failed because the founder is paying himself $50,000 per month as a salary, right? And with other benefit that even the president of the country is not even actually collecting it. Like there is no company, there is nowhere in the world, even in the US, that they are just going to pay you that. So when it comes to money management, when it comes to finance, when it comes to the right education, building rightly, and also the limitation of our environment and culture, I think this contributes greatly to it. Thank you.
Let's talk about the ecosystem. Don't you feel like the ecosystem is too dependent on foreign investors? Can you hear me?
No.
Okay, I started to talk about the ecosystem. Don't you think that they too much depend on the foreign investors?
Yeah, like in a way, yes, right. But we still also need to actually still work on growing what we have at home, right? So let me put it this way. Many ideologies you see, many civilization, even many transformation you see in cities, you see in states, you see across the world, is being consciously funded by some group of people that even some of them, they are not even profit driven. They just want to see an ideology share. They want to just spread propaganda across border and all of that. But the who is who in Nigeria, right, in Africa, we have this mindset that is so ugly when it comes to investing. That's why you see a lot of politicians, right? They will say they buried money, they put it in sock away, they put it in storage. Some of them, their money even begin to decay instead of pumping it back into the economy. And I will share with you that as of today, the largest percentage of the economy, I'm just citing Nigeria as a case study, right? So it's not even traceable, it's not trackable, it's not in the bank. It doesn't have financial inclusion, right? it doesn't have financial inclusion. It doesn't have a lot of things, right? So, and that is why this actually also contributes to it. If you go and meet someone that, okay, I want you to invest in a business, they are not looking at about the social and the economic impact. They are looking at what is there for me. And we have this Ponzi mentality also as a continent. I just want to sow today. I want it to mature today, and I want to reap today. That is why you see that Ponzi thrive the most
in Nigeria.
In the African continent, in Nigeria particularly. I mean, there are still 100 of it running currently. You won't know until they crash. And many people will say, okay, they lost their money. People that does not even have money, suddenly they have money. So I believe it's something we need to work on as pertain our ideology, and some people should be willing to fund some type of business in a different way. Some people will be willing to even spend their money, push their money into ideology that they want to see prosper, into business that they are really persuaded and confident about, beyond even their immediate gratification, right? Yeah. If you look at some startups, some it took them like 5 years before they are even profitable. Some for 2 decades they were not profitable. And when they became profitable, they actually just, let me use our terminology, they actually blew, and it wowed everybody. But for some time they were not. But their investor keep pumping their money. And then you can look at about 10 to 20 unicorn, right? And you see that this story is consistent. Thank you.
All right, so before we move on to the other discussion of the day, we have to go for Go Stats now. So stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back from Go Stats, and I hope you learned one or two things from what we had earlier. And before we go on, before we went for Go Stats, we're actually having a discussion with our guest, who happens to be an economist in person of Sam Olubunmi. We're talking about the startup in Africa. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So before we went on a short break, we were actually talking about the ecosystem, and we see that along the line we see what especially Africa in person has done within the space of 8 months. So we like to ask, countries like Nigeria, Kenya, even Egypt and South Africa often led the charts when it comes to these things. So what's giving them the edge? What is actually giving them the spotlight? What is making it work for them, according to your perspective?
Okay, please can you repeat the question once more?
All right, so I mentioned Nigeria as an example. I mentioned Kenya and Egypt. We see that, especially even South Africa, we see that they often lead the charts when it comes to startup investments. What is actually giving them the edge? What keeps them going? What drives them?
Okay, I think we've mentioned some of it, right? Like, only to write an inkling of ease of doing business. Let's take South Africa for instance, right? In South Africa today, if you have a solid business proposal and all of that, it's easier for you to go to the bank and get funding for it, even without you even getting foreign funding for that, right? And to ability to actually do this is with ease in those countries, and those countries are currently actually embracing their most vibrant population, which is the youth, right? So they are providing them with the ability to do business with ease. But we can see that in Nigeria, it's like everything is, almost every single month, everything become more and more difficult, just like the government inventing new ways to make life much harder and more difficult. And we can see that even one of the reasons why we just need to speak in respect to this is that we can see that even those people that want us to, okay, the economy is picking up, you just need to be patient, you need to make sacrifice, but they are not actually making the sacrifice. They are not actually living by example. They keep spending a lot of money towards, to just gratify themselves. But if you look at this country, you mentioned Kenya, if you look at South Africa, they provide an enabling environment. It's easier for you to, they push their tourism. It's when you have tourists and all of that, that you can also say, okay, foreigners are coming to your country, they feel comfortable, there's no insecurity, your economy is stable, You have infrastructure in terms of road. You have infrastructure in terms of a whole lot of social amenities. I have a friend that his first time being in the East, in East Africa. Generally, he taught the three countries, Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda. And he began to lament, right, that it's funny because he saw the level of social amenity even in another African continent, another African country, not going abroad, not going to the Western world, and he was amazed that the level of ease that he would just do let's take subscription, data subscription now. That his data subscription is around 20,000 naira per month, unlimited and very fast. As of today, if you do 1 terabyte, then 1 terabyte, if you use it, it will be exhausted in a month time. It will even reach a month time, and you will have poor quality data connection.
Data connections, yeah.
That. And there's no one to even hold them accountable. Right? So there's just a whole lot of, from infrastructure side to the environment to the economy, they are like ahead of us currently. And you will see that this country, a lot of finance and money are just flowing there from the US, from all the tier 1 country generally. And you see their tourism to just take Rwanda. Rwanda is not even up to Lagos in population, right? So I mean, some of this country, if they should even combine the three countries together, they are not up to Nigeria in size.
All right.
But then I want to even ask something. I've been trying to avoid that of the government and some business owners in Nigeria, because you talked about MTN, you talked about some businesses, and the fact that, because now that you talked about data, it really touched my heart. Like you talked about in other African countries, you could get unlimited and all those kind of things, and at the end of the day, you get quality for what you paid for. But in Nigeria, and the truth is, many of these companies that we complain about in Nigeria also have businesses in these countries too as well, and they give top-notch services. But in Nigeria, they don't give the kind of service that is very necessary, and even down to the government too as well. Sometimes they don't even do what it's needed to make things quite easy for Nigerians. Don't you think this can contribute? I want to comment on this. But don't you think this can as well contribute to the reasons why many youths within this country just wants to just go out there and do something else than just staying within, to just continue doing one or two things in business? Because I believe that Nigerians too as well can be very creative in the business space, but many of them don't operate within the country as we speak. What's your take on this?
Yeah, because just like what we cited, right? Imagine that if you take majority of Nigerians, right, in diaspora, why do they excel well compared to like when they are in Nigeria? You can see that every single individual in Nigeria, we have basic grit, we are hardworking, we understand work ethics, we are ready to go ahead, we are creative, right, to go beyond for whatsoever or where we work. That is why even in corporate setting, if in Nigeria is employed, just give them matters of few years, they've climbed the ladder. And another country that exemplified this well is also the Indians, right? So we can see that it means that basically something is not just working, right? It's not working because imagine you need to struggle with rate, dollar rate, and all of that to do your business. You end up in loss. Before you do that even 1 time, 2 times, you become fed up. You just want to leave. You want to leave. And the opportunity also, another thing that is also frustrating, so frustrating right now, is that they are making every policy, everything to stifle even the little businesses that is still holding the economy. They are making policy that stifle the growth of all these sectors, stifle even personal income for individuals and all of that, without any additional opportunity being created. There's no opportunity. But even the little you have, we still want to tax it. We still want to extract a lot of value for ourselves, for the government from it, right? But yet, they are not actually putting any energy, any meaningful energy to actually provide additional value that we actually use this. Imagine, like the new bill. I mean, it's good if Nigeria is working. But we all know how it will go. Imagine with what we have as a country and all of that. Nigeria is very rich as a country, but as a people, we are poor. I mean, Nigeria is one of the richest countries in the world, but as a people, we are very, very, very poor. I mean, if you look at another country, what's the name of this country in Africa? They also do oil export. When they have a boost in the oil per barrel, right, they begin to even give their citizens $5 per one. As at that time, we have excess profit more than them, twice more than them, and we cannot even see it. But some people can see it because it went straight to some pockets, and it will surprise you that recently a news came out that what they cannot even account for in the oil industry, just within this space of this year, is more than the Nigeria economy. It doubles and still like 250% of the Nigeria economy.
That money has gone somewhere. We don't know where it's going
very
to.
Alarming, and this is frustrating. And now youth, they are trying to do one thing and or the other. Maybe they are in tech, they are getting paid abroad, they are using it to help themselves, their families, siblings, just to bear a lot of responsibility that the government ought to do for them. But the government say, okay, you can even still survive, you are still living, you are helping people. What we are even getting, let's take our cut from it. They are not providing any additional opportunity. Imagine, the country begins to work and everything is fine, and we know that even if you tax us, we see what you actually use the money to do. But the one you have been having in the realms of trillions of dollars, we can't even see what you are using it to do. Now you still want to tax us to get more from us. Well, we also know how it will end, right? Is into some people's pocket, and it's frustrating as a youth, as a business owner, knowing fully well that you can't even see what your money is going to, and they are just stifled you, making this business harder for you to do, and at the same time there's no opportunity. It's not maybe they make business loan accessible to start up. It's not maybe they make infrastructure, they democratize it or make it very easy and affordable. It's not maybe they provide security and all of that. No, but they just keep being bent on taxation and all of that. We have a lot of revenue before. What do they do with it? I mean, it's frustrating, and for your sake, and if you actually want your business to do well, you want to go to the right place. The right place might just be Benin Republic here, right? You don't need to move far. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Hope you don't have any plans to move in the actual sense. But then let me just ask this before we gradually get to the point of crescendoing on this discussion. Now, I discovered something. 90% to the male when it comes to the investment, and 10% to the female. Now, and people talked about the fact that there's this gross disparity because many of these businesses that investors really put their funds on were majorly male-dominated and not female-led startups. Why do you think this is the order of the day in the business aspect than what we are experiencing?
I think to just conservatively speak on that subject is I don't think you said disparity. It just means that these people are measuring different things, right? We all know we're in Africa, right? We all know what is obtainable in this culture, in this part of the world, and all of that. And the 90% startup is not maybe they are not female executive in their company. It's not maybe they are just only measuring founder, right?
Yeah.
Founder, co-founder, right? That is what they only measure, which I don't think is a true statistics. I mean, even I was still commenting as of today, right? If you're a female, the opportunity that is available for you in tech or in startup is much more than the male counterpart. So
really?
Definitely an affirmative yes. A definite yes. If you go to Twitter now, search She Code Africa, coding scholarship for female, just search things, and you even see a lot of people giving out laptop, computer for female. It's hard for you to see it as a man. You will need to at least merit for you to get it.
So are you saying the statistics are wrong?
Generally, I'm with you.
Are you saying the statistics are wrong from their own analysis?
I'm just saying what the statistics measure are quite different when it comes to the equality.
Reality.
They ought to measure different metrics. They need to focus on different metrics, not just founder-led alone. They should look at opportunity available to the female, right, in the tech ecosystem, in the industry. I mean, if you're a female, you are 2 steps ahead of your male counterparts currently, because there's a whole lot of scholarship, welfare program for female. I mean, you can just take my word for it. Go to Twitter. Yes, just go to Twitter, begin to search for opportunities, but always add for females only, ladies only, women only, and you will be amazed that wow, this is awesome. And I think another thing that contributed to it that I was saying the other time is because of our culture, right? Because of our culture. And we know definitely the male counterpart, they are risk driven, right?
Yeah, true.
They love risk. But, you know, women are generally calculative, they know how to manage well, they are reserved, right? I mean, some of them are actually daring and all of that, but it is in the nature of man to be risky. It is in the nature of men to just do things that, irrespective of their convenience, irrespective of this might actually lead them to any other thing or the other, they want to just actually do this. And I believe that as time goes on, you will see that this statistic will begin to change. We are going to have more female leading this startup ecosystem, because currently the opportunity available for women, for female, are actually quite even more, much more. I mean, you can search for cyber girls. This is a top security firm that help you to get into cyber security and all of that. I mean, they even help you get job, even foreign gigs and all of that. But it's only for female, right?
Wow.
But it now become an issue like, do we have female who are daring enough, who want to take this appropriate risk that their male counterpart is taking? Because, you know, startup is all about uncertainty. You don't even know, like, it's all about uncertainty and all of that. I've seen some female that are very, very daring, doing exploits, right? I mean, I've seen several of them, and they are actually pioneering something right now. I mean, in the next 1, 2, 3 years, we are going to see that this statistic will begin to change, that we begin to have more female-led company, more female-led startup.
All right, so from your perspective now, I would like to know, if this pace continues for the rest of the year, what will the startup funding look like at the end of 2025?
Yeah, I believe like it's going to look great, but we should not expect to see like double, or I believe if we can see around between 10 to like 30% increase, that is something much more, because if you look at the year, we are already in the 9th month. So majority of company and VC fund, the end of the last quarter of the year is just for them to review what they have done since the first quarter of the year, right? So majority of them want to take profits. They actually want to maximize what they've done throughout the year. They want to share dividend. They want to pull out fund from investment and all of that. So we might not see like exponential growth, right? But we can still see something in the range of 10 to like 30% growth, which I think is very fair, looking at the cycles, yearly cycles, because the last quarter of the year is mainly for like investors want to take profit, people want to go on vacation. They are not willing to even do, majority of them don't even want to even work during the last quarter, right? And the year is rounding up, there's a lot of meetings, they want to audit, they want to do a whole lot of stuff. So that it might not make it much more sporadic. But I mean, it's something which if you can see additional 10 to 30%.
But then let me ask this. You were talking about a kind of education many startups need to get to understand how to do business. We know we go to school in Nigeria a lot, especially Nigeria. We go to multiple schools, we do everything. But what kind of education do you need, or do you think a startup business needs at this particular time, or a startup entrepreneur needs at this particular time, that can help them grow their business and make them very attractive to investors at this particular time, despite the fact that we have many economic challenges at this time?
Yeah, please. I get the last part, but the start of the question, can you repeat?
Now, I'm talking about the place of education for startups, entrepreneurs. Looking at the fact that we understand truthfully that many of them at this time, they need investors and all that in their businesses. And you've been talking about the fact that they need to up their games education-wise to be able to be attractive to investors. So what kind of education, what level of education do you think they need at this time to be able to attract as many investors as possible at this particular time?
I believe we need the right education. You cite our university, tertiary institutions. I think it's very awesome, because I saw in news that they are actually revising the curriculum. Imagine a professor teaching you with curriculum that dated back to like 30 years ago, And we can see even what what is even viable then is not viable now. Things have changed, right? We have type of education we get at our form of education at higher institution. Majority of them are very, very outdated, and that is what is available and accessible to the masses. Except when we see private institutions like some which are not even easily affordable for a common man, right? So I believe we need to, in terms of right education, we just need to go for right trainings and all of that. There is one now that I've known for couples of times, right? So they run mini MBA. You can go for mini MBA, not full, not degree-based MBA, right? You can have an understanding, and you can also see a lot of VC, a lot of incubators, a lot of all these businesses. They actually run like training every single time, from VC to incubators to accelerators and all of that. You need to join this. There's a startup school by YC. I think YC funded majority of all the fintech and some of these technology companies you are seeing in Nigeria. You can go to YC startup school online, free of charge. You can look for Techstar resources to actually have the right understanding how to structure your business. I mean, even our ideology about business is quite different. I mean, I've received several of our, like over 50 of our, to actually be a co-founder, and majority of it from foreigners and all of that, from Kuwait, US, Canada and all of that. And they will even give you offer like that you are doing 50-50 equity share. Despite he's the founder, I'm just the co-founder. But in Nigeria, even someone sharing an idea that has not yet been validated, idea that are still subjected to change, we'll be speaking to you with so much confidence. We'll be speaking to you that, okay, come and be a co-founder, I will give you 3%. You can even see that there's disparity in even how to structure business. There's disparity and a lot of this connection about how business work, how startup work. There's how to even structure your startup before any foreigners or any investor is going to invest in it. So that's why we need to pursue knowledge in this regard, so that we can know what we need to do. We can be able to just do that.
All right. Earlier you mentioned the fact that because when you were speaking earlier, you mentioned that, especially West Africa, and when we come to Nigeria, you mentioned that we are not getting the right, the right startup, the right capital. And you mentioned some situation that happened, like the governments that are not doing the right thing, loans and all of that. So what do you think that we can do as a nation now, as a Nigerian?
The government.
Yes. What do you think we can do personally now, even aside the government? What can we do personally in trying to, attract investors so that they can put in their money, their capital in investing in our businesses here in Nigeria, so that we can actually meet up with other African countries?
Okay, I think the first thing will be that as individual, you have the right knowledge. You first of all understand your challenge, then first of all understand the audience you are building for, then understand your target investor, then get the right knowledge, then build with these personas you have created. You understand the audience you are serving, you understand the type of investor you are looking for, right? You understand your challenges as pertaining to your countries where you are currently. Then you begin to pivot from there. You begin to get the right knowledge and tailor your business, number one, to actually mitigate all these challenges from your countries. Then to actually know how to position yourself, to actually meet, you already know what these investors are looking for. You build your business having those essential elements, right? Then you understand your audience. Then you will build in a way that your audience is going to actually patronize you. They already know that, okay, this, you, and all of that. So you should understand all these things. That actually will put you ahead of the majority that is not doing what you are doing currently. So you should understand your present challenge. For example, with data, maybe you are running a startup and you have to spend like 100K sending money to your engineers, your marketing teams, your sales, 100K or 200K. you spend up to like 100K in your company every single week, you can get Starlink with 50,000 subscription. You can be sure that even if you use 2-3 terabytes, it's unlimited, and it's like 20x better than whatsoever network in Nigeria might offer you in terms of quality and speed. Right? So you can begin to make even what the government are not providing. You can look for how you can get alternatives to them, right? They understand the customer you are building for and tailor your product to actually meet their need in such a way. Because even our culture, we have sentiment as a continent, right? You build towards that. They understand your investment, structure your business to meet the investor requirement. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much, Sam. We wish we could take more questions, actually. We wish we could discuss more. But then our time is fast spent at this particular time on this particular discourse. And yes, we appreciate you for being a part of this. Thanks so much, Sam.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Now it's time to go for sports. Immediately after sport, we come back on Daybreak Africa. We'll say our goodbye. So please stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Journalists to Daybreak Africa, and yes, I hope you enjoyed sport. But now it's time to actually say our goodbyes on Daybreak Africa for today. It's been a very wonderful discussion with Sam Olubunmi and talking about startups in Africa. It's very difficult when a startup at this particular time. Imagine you just starting up a new business, and definitely you need investment. One of the things that thrilled me the most is that in Africa, most of the people that got the investment were businesses led by guys, 90%. And 10% by women. I don't know why guys don't invest in women. What do you think happens that people don't like investing in women?
What do you mean that they don't like investing in women? Or, you know, okay, for example, from my own perspective, I feel like as a man of the house, you will want to take all the glory. Like, I'm the one, like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Let's my wife just be on the sideline. Then let me just, you know, be the breadwinner, be the one, you know, moving, doing more things and all that. Exactly.
So people don't really trust the woman factor to do their business.
So I feel like even those 10% can be people, maybe they are single parents or people who does not
really have marriage on the side.
Exactly.
And maybe they're more. But sometimes though, it takes a lot to do. It takes a lot to actually, you know, investors, they tend to, I used to feel investors actually tend to be the most unbiased of people. Because sometimes, as an investor, you have to see things the way it is. You could be my friend and I'll not invest in your business. Because at the end of the day, if you tell me I get this business, you know, you have friends like that. I get this business, I want to do. I don't. But the truth is, I know. Okay, guy, what's my expected ROI? That's my return on investment after many years. How many percent of the business do you think I will have a right towards? What's your plan towards? Because at the end of the day, if you go, I don't want my money to. Investors actually they are very strict, extremely strict, and for them not to pick more women, I think maybe because more women are not really recognized yet as startups in the place of the business field and co. But I think as years goes by, there should be a surge in them because I think, if not because of social media that has made many girls today now see more of the other side of just being hookups and just doing things that just gets money. Many of them have the very good brains. I witnessed my many mothers out there, even from the corn business, from the field business they do, they send people to school.
Build houses.
Build houses. I know of a woman that used Ewedu business. Ewedu. This leaf that they use, this draw leaf and all that. She used it to build a business that she later began to build houses with it and all those kind of things. And some of the things we never put our eyes to. So I think women tend to have that creativity towards well with business. That is if they are given that kind of orientation, that kind of focus towards it, not people that actually just want to make gimmicks and all those kind of things. But then tomorrow on Daybreak Africa, we'll be discussing more topics in the actual sense. We'll be looking at a lot of things. But before we get there on Daybreak Africa, let's actually just say our goodbyes for today. My name still remains Ikhonede.
And my name is Miracle Odunayo.
Bye, guys.